So here's the first stop on the walk that I'm taking. There are these trees that you see around Nairobi, around Kenya, and they have these long white thorns, small tiny leaves, and the bark is this kind of furry, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of furry green yellow type bark. There's a lot of ants on it, and there's this sap that comes out of it. But anyway, just showing this is a tree. This is a very common tree that you see in Kenya. And just a basic thing, like depending on where you grow up, if somebody asks you what color is a tree, somebody gives you a tree and it's like, okay, paint this tree, color this tree. In much of the world, they'll just do the typical like brown tree with the green leaves, with the bushy leaves. Whereas if you live in a place where this is a basic tree, this is the kind of idea that you think of with trees. Like this could be what most of the trees around you look like. Small, sparse, tiny leaves, long, thin branches, thorns, actual yellow bark instead of the brown bark that you normally see. So that's just kind of a cool thing to consider. Like depending where you're at, what you see, you can have a different consideration of what a tree is, even though the tree itself, the idea of tree is something that's so basic and used by a lot of humanity. So just some thoughts on that. And also that ant thing, I've seen this happen on previous, no, not previous, there's just the guava tree for specific has a lot of ants living in it. Somehow hollow, they enter the inside and they kind of burrow in there and create ant homes in there. So even you thinking ant houses, if somebody says, where does an ant live? Some people might think an ant hill. Some people might be like, okay, they live in trees. But an added thing is the whole idea of like, okay, if bees go away, we're not going to be able to have people pollinate plants. But no, you can pollinate plants through other ways. Ants do that in some situations. They climb on flowers and go to other places, get nectar from there. Maybe if the bees weren't doing it as much, the ants would realize this is more evident, there's more, not evident, but there's more access to this, and they decide to start doing that more. Yeah. But it's another thing. There's a lot of places where they'll just have these open drains and things like that, which are not really taken care of that well. And then of course, the dust again. Next on this, these are nuts. These like, okay, it's like a hand size. You get that for like 10 shillings, which is about 10 cents in dollars. And that's just a basic snack. These things started, they weren't always done this way. They used to be done in these little paper cones, but they became a lot more frequent, so people started actually packaging these in factories and things like that, and they just go around. And you'll have them at your basic kiosk, or you'll have them at people, the street vendors selling these. Yeah, this 10 cents is the go-through thing for this. I mean, 10 shillings. But yeah, jugos for 10 shillings. And they have these ones that are kind of red, brown type things, and they have these other big ones, it's other variety. And then in some cases you'll have them with flavorings and spices cooked on the outside of it. But yeah, that's it. Okay, right here is an example of how garbage the whole like walking situation is. You can see the sidewalks, it's non-existent on that side, and then here it used to be just here. When I was here before, this wasn't here. But as you can see, some people decided to come up somebody's lawn. That's cow dung right there. Somebody just came out on somebody's on this front lawn, because the way it works here is this is technically public land, but it's also with the people's homes. When people have their fences there, a lot of walls and fences in Nairobi. So this whole idea, going to the United States of America and seeing that kind of open place in suburbia where people just have no picket fence, that whole white picket fencing was a thing of the 50s, I guess. But where I lived, they had these open places where you see your yard just goes into the next person's yard. That doesn't really happen here. Here is a lot of fences and walls, and it's kind of what you see. So here people just kind of decided to create their own little walking place, because as you can see, if you're walking on the side there, you're right where the cars are. You can get hit. So not quite that safe. So here we go. And again, the dust. I mean, we're talking about this a lot. This is one thing I keep complaining about Nairobi. Not the heat, not the other things. Not even mosquitoes that much. But it is dusty. It's jokes out here. And it's because of this red soil in most cases. This very fine red soil and lack of humidity. So things get very dry and thrown in the air very much. And then here we have an example of private people building their own things. You see right here, this is a private residence, an estate, and now they've hired people to come out here and building a sidewalk in front of their building. This could be part of this understanding that if the dust comes like that, it gets blown out into the home. I don't know exactly what's behind it, but this just shows that things can happen without complete state involvement. This is the whole sidewalk situation. Another issue with things happening in stages. Here, it'll take a while for them to actually bring these, and then there'll be companies saying, okay, we should have the wooden ones. Someone will say, well, we should have cement ones, because they might have relationships with somebody in the cement company. And then it gets to the point where, okay, finally they start putting them up. Then they have enough funding to bring the pipes up, to bring the towers up. Then they'll have the towers just laying on the side of the street. The poles, or whatever you want to call them. And then they'll put the poles in and put the little lights on top, little hooks for the lights, and then still not have the lights in because that's being handled by a different company. And you see a lot of this happening over and over again. Just things, forgotten projects just started and ended and just put in, what's that term? Not escrow. There's a term for limbo. Is it limbo? Something like that. They put in layaway or something. They're like, oh, we've put something on this. We'll get back to that, but we're going to wait till the next election or the next whatever, the next budget. So that happens here in Kenya. It happens in a lot of other countries, and this is just an example of it happening here. There's going to be a road down there that I'll show you when I get to. That is a bigger example of that, how the project has taken years and years. Great project, great idea, but just fits and starts in getting it going. Okay, here is an estate. Some new buildings being built. I don't know what kind of style this is. Modernist. I don't know my architecture that well, but you see things like this, people trying different projects and different kind of building. Now, I personally know that my life experience is not necessarily typical to a lot of people, and some of the things I'm showing you may not be typical of how life is in Nairobi, but I'm trying to show you things that I see and things I think would be interesting to see, because I don't think buildings like this are often shown about a place like Nairobi. Now, I'm not saying this is 90% of what Nairobi is, but that's there too, because this kind of building too, these kind of estates are putting them together, and yeah, that's what you see in some places. It's not just Kibera slum, which is where I think a lot of the public material that you see about Nairobi will be things like from the slums or from the safari areas in Kenya. These are the typical type of things you see about Africa. Not saying that because this is here it means there are no problems, but yeah, pretty cool stuff to see this stuff as well. And this is a really cool tree as well. There's, I don't know what the name of the actual tree, but there are these like seed pod things that come out, and the seed pods fall down, and then they have these little kind of seeds on these tiny little wings. And we used to, as kids, take those little seed pods, and they often have these little troughs, or I don't know what the actual thing, gully or whatever it's called, on the side of the streets. When it would rain and there'd be water in them, we'd get these little seed pods and put them in there and then race them down the hill. It's kind of like the whole thing in like the It movie where they had racing the little paper boat in the gutter, and then I think that's the word, the gutter, racing the paper boat in the gutter and then going down into the sewer. But we used to have that kind of thing with just little seed pods from that tree. But yeah, as I mentioned before, this is some of the construction work. This is one of the bypasses. They're building several bypasses, which just means bypassing the city, because there used to be a point where Wayaki Way, which is down that way, was the main thoroughfare, and to get from one side of Nairobi to the other, let's say you live in an industrial area which is on the other side, or this side is like the Westlands side, where you need to go, if you think if you're going to Mombasa, you go to this way. So some people crossing across would have to cross the main part of the city, and that was not really that conducive to travel, caused a lot of traffic and things like that. So they're creating these kind of bypasses where people are going to go around and not have to get bogged up with those major thoroughfare stops or passing through the city, so you can get a situation like this. So now there's a lot of construction, and here seem to be building a tunnel of sorts to go underneath, and you can see they're just tearing up the roads here. It's rather, there's a lot of work going on. I mean, it's a big kind of project to put together, And some of these projects have help with the Chinese, the Japanese, different people from abroad. Some it's local companies, but in most cases it's staffed by local people. And the process is going on, and this is the maendeleo, as they say, as the things going on in Swahili. Maendeleo, I'm gonna say maendeleo of vijana. That's like going-ons of young people. So maendeleo ya barabara, so going-ons of the road. I don't know. So this is just one of the bypasses. This is the things that starts up, then it stops again, starts up, stops again. So I'm kind of a bit frustrated by that, but hey, I think everybody's frustrated with their governments, and this is just a typical thing to see, that statecraft happens, roads happen, and there's all that complaints everywhere, and it's a common thing. Okay, here's a sign for a plot for sale, 0.4 acres, which I think is just right here. It's a pretty choice location, nice neighborhood, and there's a lot of things that happen here in Nairobi or just in Kenya in general, but mostly in Nairobi, where you had people who bought land in the past and then they left the country or they passed away before there was an effective system of deeds and things like that. So you have a lot of situations where you'll go and you'll find like a very choice plot, a very choice piece of land just empty in the middle of a very developed area, and you wonder, okay, well, whose does this belong to, or why is it going unused? And you have that kind of situation where people are just abroad, or people left, or people forgot that they even owned it. So you have that kind of situation, but now they're working at getting these places picked back up. I think there's going to be companies actually targeting just that specific kind of person who doesn't have knowledge or ability to handle or develop the lands that they have. And they did something with the government as well. I think they brought in a law to kind of prevent people from hoarding land, because you had some people who would just get some land, hoard it, and keep it up. But now they have a kind of fee that you have to pay to have the land, so people can't just buy 50,000 acres and keep it. But as you know, you may know with my stance, I'm more for less government as possible. And even if there is a fee and everything, the same people who can afford to hoard land can still do that, can still pay that fee. Whereas you have people who may not be able to afford to pay the fee, but may be able to save up or obtain some land, or they may be going through some struggles where they have valid reasons for not developing that land. If they can't afford the maintenance fee, they have to give up the land in some way. So a lot of these laws, they may seem from face value to be positive, but there's always negative ways, I think, that can also come out from that. You know, that whole different things happen for the same reasons type of thing that I've been talking about for a while. But yeah, I mean, I hope the audio is pretty good. I've been trying to test this and see with the cars driving by and everything, but trying to record this without the headphones and just see if I can pick it up on the phone. I shall try to levelize the audio on post-production, but yeah.